Greetings, I'm Dr. Sean Reed, and today I want to talk about dating success in 1985 compared to dating success in 2025. A lot of things have changed over the last 40 years, but the bottom line, the key to success has not changed. The key to successful dating, whether today, whether 40 years ago or 400 years ago, is a concept known as challenge. So while we're going to see that a lot of things have changed today, a lot of things, social media, technology, that really the key to success in dating is still the same, and that's challenge. And I'm going to explain how to present, how to generate more challenge in your relationships and get women to fall in love with you and stay in love with you. Okay, so back in the 1980s, dating was totally different than it is now. It was like the Wild West. You go out to clubs, the women, I hate to say this, but it's true, were much more attractive back then. You would have 10 women and 6 of them would be gorgeous. There were very, very few overweight or obese women. And men were also much more aggressive back then. We were much more aggressive and less, shall we say, ashamed to demonstrate unbridled masculinity, because a lot of things that have happened since 1980s hadn't happened, right? So since the 1980s, we've had cancel culture, we've had the Me Too movement, and we've had radical feminism take over our universities and our media institutions. So what has happened is a lot of men today are cowed. They're not like we were 40 years ago. We would go out, we saw a woman we liked, we would open her, okay? We wouldn't be fearful of rejection, okay? We knew that we're gonna go out, we're gonna meet a lot of women in person, and that a lot of those women are gonna reject us, but that was okay. We were much more willing to be rejected. Today, men have become more fearful. They cannot handle that rejection. So I argue that you need to get in touch with your primal masculinity and start being more aggressive with women today. Now, the differences between younger and older guys, I've done a lot of videos recently talking about dating after 45 versus dating when younger. The primary difference is my older guys, and I've done a number of videos on this topic, the older guys came from that generation where we were much more aggressive about pursuing women, and we were, as a consequence, we were much more successful. Men were not ashamed of being men back then, and one of the consequences is that we were much more successful at meeting women, at seducing women, at having sex with women, and getting into relationships. What has happened is, though, since 1980s, the divorce rate has skyrocketed, and so with a lot of my older guys, they've been through divorces and through failed marriages, and other bad things have happened to them in terms of relationship. So my older guys were successful at one time, but now don't want to have anything to do with women because of all the negative things that happened to them, versus younger guys, which have not had any success, but have been kind of cowed by our social media and our mass media, okay? And one of the things I argue, guys, is we need to put an end to that. How do we do it? We do that through challenge. Challenge gets a woman to love you and gets a woman to stay in love with you. But it's not something that is simple, okay? Challenge is critical. The female brain has not really changed much in thousands of years. Back when we were caveman, a good hunter, a good gatherer, a good protector would be out all day doing his thing, and all the women in his clan would want them. So he was automatically a challenge. We need to still preserve that notion of challenge, and in a moment I'll tell you how to do that, okay? But one of the problems is a lot of men are cowed. One of the keys to challenge for younger guys, for guys or my older guys that are trying to get into relationships, is you have to have the mindset that you have many, many options, okay? Now, on the other hand, it's a little different if you're in a relationship. I've been married for 20 years, and being a challenge is different. So I want to talk a little bit about how to be a challenge if you're just a guy that's new, that's dating, that's trying to talk to women, trying to meet women, trying to get phone numbers, trying to get dates, trying to build a dating rotation. I'm going to compare that to someone like me that has been married 20 years. again, in both situations, challenge is the key to success. So this is what happened to me this last weekend. It was Mother's Day, and my wife took my son and basically ditched me. She left Thursday night, and I didn't see her till Sunday, okay? A lot of guys in marriages and relationships, when that happens, their wife kind of disappears for 3 days. They get clingy, they get needy, they are not a challenge, so they'll start to call her, text her, check up on her. Huge mistake, guys. When my wife does this, I disappear, I ghost her, okay? She didn't text me, I didn't text her. She didn't call me, I didn't call her. And instead of sitting around at home thinking, what's my wife doing, what's my wife doing, right? I did the opposite. I put on some nice clothes, I put on my black jeans, my white python boots. I wore this shirt, as a matter of fact, and I went out to a club and watched a band, okay? When I got there, there was this beautiful light-skinned black gal sitting. They have tables, and there are 4 people to a table, but really you need to sit this way so you can see the band. So I went up to, I didn't take the seat next to her, but I took the seat one away, not to invade her space, and I asked politely, is anyone sit here? May I sit here? And she said, sure, you can sit there. And so I talked a little bit about her. Remember, guys, when we meet girls, we want a little light, a little funny conversation. She was playing with her hair. She had long, straight black hair, which I really like. And so I gave her a compliment. She had 2 things I could compliment. Remember, when we meet a girl, we generally like to give one sincere compliment, and don't let that compliment be sexual, related to her body. So she had beautiful hands, beautiful fingernails, and she also had beautiful long black hair that she was throwing around. And I said, so I gave her the compliment. I said, your hair is beautiful. You know, if I may give you some advice, don't ever cut it. And then she started talking about how hard it was to maintain her hair, et cetera, et cetera. And then the band started. Okay, so I stayed there. I enjoyed the band, played a set for about 55 minutes. Now, this girl was much younger than me, was probably less than half my age, very beautiful. So, you know, realistically, and of course I'm married, I'm not going to make a move on her. But the idea here is to distract myself, to not sit at home and obsess on my wife. Going out to the club, sitting next to a beautiful woman and watching a band was a great distraction. So I was not obsessing on my wife. As soon as the band ended, another gentleman, a black gentleman, came in. He was much older. He was married. I saw he had a ring. He was talking to her, and I kind of heard him say something about, oh, what would your boyfriend say knowing you were sitting with this guy? And so after that, she excused herself and said I had to go. And I said, yes. I said, thank you for letting me sit here. Have a nice evening. Okay. So what I had done here is I distracted. By this time, it was midnight. I had a great time. I enjoyed myself, and I drove home, let my dog out, and then eventually went to bed. The point here, I wasn't obsessing on my wife. I was being a challenge. Okay, so that's how challenge works 20 years into a marriage. If you're young, how does challenge, if you're single, whether you're young or older, you could be 22 or 62, it doesn't matter. The key is to still be a challenge, okay? That's why we're always talking to lots of women. That's why we're always trying to get lots of phone numbers. That's why we're always trying to date many women. And that's why I advocate running a 3. If you're single, have a 3-woman rotation, okay? That automatically makes you a challenge. Challenge is hard to fake, guys. And it's one of the hardest things for men to do. I've known the strongest of men, Marines, Navy SEAL. I had a friend, he was invited to be on SEAL. He wasn't on SEAL Team 6, but he had to invite professional mixed martial artists. I've known the toughest of men. When it comes to women, they become very weak because they don't maintain challenge. I've had other videos on this topic, but when these guys get involved in long-term relationships, they lose their challenge, their power of challenge. They develop a mindset of neediness. They become clingy, and usually the result of this is they start to fight and argue in a relationship. So whether you're 20 years into a marriage or you're single and dating, the key again is challenge, guys. And that has not changed. Technology has not changed that. The cancel culture has not changed that. Radical feminism, the Me Too movement, none of that has changed that women are designed, their brains are designed to respond to challenge, okay? When I talk about reclaiming our masculinity, I'm not talking about being a macho jerk, So this whole notion of toxic masculinity is a fabrication from our media. There's nothing wrong with being masculine as long as we are gentlemen. But when I talk about reclaiming our masculinity, I'm talking about maintaining challenge, okay? And it's hard to do that, so you always want to have options. So if you're single, you're always opening lots of women. You're getting lots of number. Again, I don't care if you're 22 or 62. You're going to be meeting and talking to lots of women, and that's why we date multiple women. If you're married like me, and your wife ditches you for the weekend to spend time with her mother and her family, don't sit around and fester in loneliness. Go do something to take your mind off your wife. Be a challenge no matter what stage of a relationship you're in. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed that. If you want to learn more about my system, please check out my book, The Dating Toolbox. It's available on Amazon.com. Guys, we need to build a community of men teaching men how to get women to love us and stay in love with us. We gotta reject everything that's happened in the last 40 years has hurt relationships. Relationships are in a terrible state of affairs. So as men, we need to reclaim our masculinity, and we need to learn how to build the power of challenge.